I'm here with Jake Katz, who happens to run sound for
Silverstein.
Yes. This beautiful man texted me a few days ago, and this is going to be a quick, let's throw some cameras on to see how it goes. Thank you so much
Thanks for
for
coming.
hitting me up
Yeah.
and asking me to come out. This is really cool.
Sick.
Big fan of this band's and
Killer.
excited to learn a little bit more.
Happy to
you.
share.
So we're here in
Happy to share.
Atlanta
Yes.
at the beautiful Masquerade.
That's right. In heaven.
In heaven. Yes, because they have heaven, hell, and purgatory.
Right, exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Okay, we're gonna go rewind all the way back
Cool.
to the very beginning.
Okay.
When you're a sparkle in your daddy's eye.
Right in the beginning. Yeah,
Right in the very
exactly.
beginning.
Cool.
Where you from?
New Jersey originally. Central New Jersey, right near Rutgers University.
Okay.
New Brunswick.
I like New Jersey.
I like New Jersey. I'm an East Coast kind of person. It
Are
fits
you?
with my personality, I'd say. Yeah.
What do you think is the East Coast personality?
I always say that there's this difference between people from the East and West Coast. People from the East Coast are kind, but they're not nice. They'll go out of their way to help you, but they might not be the sweetest along the way. Versus from the West Coast, they'll say very kind things to your face.
But on the backside,
that's the one.
I'm from the West Coast, so
You know, yeah.
I can neither confirm or deny the truth of
Exactly,
what you're saying. But I'll say it very
exactly.
politely to you.
There it is. Exactly. Perfect. Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so what got you into doing sound?
So I started playing guitar when I was in school, and I had a music teacher at the time, Mrs. Lopresti, who was very, she figured out that I was both into music and also into technology. And so she kind of pointed me towards this by like showing me the drama club in high school. And so I did sound for the school plays.
Oh,
and that was sort of like the introduction. Was like, I know how an EQ works on my guitar amp. I can sort of see how these knobs do the same thing. And it was sort of like a snowball thing of like learning how it worked from there. Yeah. Starting on analog with kids and figuring it out.
Who was I talking to recently that said if you want to learn how to EQ, learn vocals and just EQ vocals because
So,
you'll learn a ton.
It's totally true. And that was actually my sort of second step. Was after the school plays, there was this group called the Rock and Roll Chorus, which was like it's essentially a travel soccer team, but made up of like singers from like the general area that I was from. And there was a music teacher from a neighboring high school who would like take us on essentially a tour in the summer. And so we would go out for like a week or two and like regional little spots like in the few states surrounding us and do like shows where the kids would sing covers of like classic rock songs that were arranged all a cappella by this music teacher, and I would mix it. So a lot of vocals. There it is.
Okay, so you mixed for the drama club, high school.
A lot of like local kind of stuff. Exactly.
What happened after that?
So I went to college briefly, but briefly because I knew that this is what I enjoyed doing and it wasn't like serving me to be in school that way. So I kind of just put my head down and did the steps that I was aware of. So I found a production company near me called Asbury Audio in Asbury Park, New Jersey, serving venues like the Stone Pony and the Wonder Bar and the Paramount Theater and all sort of the venues regionally there. And I kind of worked my way up with them. I pushed cases to begin with, and I listened and learned and asked the right questions and started to be given sort of like the chance to mix a show here and there. And then some friends in bands started to do well, fortunately, and I kind of hopped in with them and started to go on tour for real.
So you said you were going to college?
Very briefly.
What were you going to college for?
Communications. It was kind of like a placeholder. Like, I know I should be doing this, but it's not what I really feel like doing.
What was the tipping point for you knowing that like this is what you wanted to actually do? Because it's a big decision to not continue school.
I think the thing for me was that I recognized it relatively early in life. Like in high school, I was already pretty sure that I loved this a lot. It was like going to shows on the weekends. If I was bummed out or if I was like having a bad time in school or whatever, the show was the thing that I would like look forward to on my calendar. That was the thing that I was like, I'm stoked to do this. And so being in that environment really affected me, and I decided that that was something that I kind of wanted to start doing for other people, and to also make my life into those like special occasions that really brought me a lot of joy kind of thing.
What'd your family say? Were they all for it, or were they?
I think they were supportive in a like concerned way, you know, like they definitely recognize they've got conventional jobs. They kind of are in the business world. They definitely recognize that this is not normal.
Yeah.
But they also, to their credit, were very supportive of it. Yeah.
Were you nervous?
Definitely. I mean, like it's not been easy. A lot of it, I would say. I think another thing that is a sort of repeating thing that I see in this industry is that the people that end up going the furthest are the people that kind of refuse to give up. So you're gonna eat shit for a while. There's gonna be some tough times. It's not necessarily it shouldn't be that way necessarily all the time, but it is sort of a give and take. You have to work your way up these things, and you have to really be passionate about it.
So your advice to the people that are watching this they want to do it but they're terrified because there's no like guaranteed path through
Certainly,
this, especially to go on tour, and it's so tough to like how do you get on tour without being on tour? Maybe go to a production house, maybe not. Maybe you kind of
As
roll
being
the
as
dice.
involved as possible. It's like in any way you can find. So it's whatever's like locally the resources you've got. So if
So someone's sitting on the fence right now.
right. So if
it's
you're
not
a
for
local
everybody.
band,
Don't get me
certainly
wrong,
not.
it's not.
And
That's
that's a
tough.
big part of it. And I have good friends that have like toured for a minute, recognized it wasn't for them, and they're off the road now. And that's cool. It's not for everybody. It's a lifestyle choice, and it's worth trying. I would say if it's something you're interested in, and to try it, like it's going to as many local shows as possible, meeting the types of bands or artists or whatever that you enjoy, and just like becoming a part of the scene as much as possible. And that could be a production company, it could be local bands, it's just sort of like, if you're passionate about it, put yourself in there. Get as involved as possible in person, ideally. That's the way you make the best connection.
Yeah.
It's cool to meet people on the internet, but it's a different kind of connection when you're speaking to someone in person.
Do you remember the moment that you're like, yeah, I'm gonna do this?
You know, not exactly like one moment. It was just sort of like a feeling that kind of kept growing. And as I got more experience going to shows and enjoying it and seeing it, and yeah, it's not one moment necessarily. Yeah.
Okay, so you decide you don't want to do it, the school thing. You decide to pursue this full time.
Totally.
Walking me through the steps of now getting on your first tour.
Okay, cool.
Because that's the hardest part for a lot of people is
No
actually
doubt.
getting on that first tour.
There's
so.
no doubt. So I found out about this site called Bobnet
Yep.
relatively early on. And what that meant was a lot of like cold emails because I didn't have an established network yet. And so I sent hundreds probably of emails without getting a response until the first one. Eventually, somebody spoke to me on the phone. And that somebody was the manager of a band called Blues Traveler at the time. And so I got hired to go out on tour with Blues Traveler when I was 21 years old. Initially not as an audio person, but as the job was harmonica tech, which I wasn't doing so much with
I've
the instruments
never heard of
themselves.
harmonica tech until now.
It's a relatively unique position. Yeah, so it was less to do with the instruments themselves and more like the rig he played through. There's a bunch of amps and effects and all this kind of stuff. So I was facilitating that and also guitar teching. And because I was already passionate about audio, I eventually moved into their monitor engineer position as part of them. And that was sort of like my first like legitimate foot in the door to the industry, I would say. Yeah.
Okay, talk me through this a little bit. So there's a fine line, especially on the road, of doing what you've been tasked to do and then learning about other stuff. And sometimes people can get in trouble of like, hey, stay in your lane with this.
Totally.
We hired you to do this.
That's very fair. Yeah.
What's your thought on that or your advice to like, hey, I want to learn a bunch of stuff, but I kind of want to make sure I'm not pissing people off?
I think there's kind of like two pieces to it. The first thing is to like definitely like that's good advice to stay in your lane, to not like overstep these boundaries. But at the same time, I can only speak for myself so much, but if anybody on tour or around or in the venue or whatever is interested in what I'm doing, I'm always happy to talk about it. So it's like, as long as you don't come at it from an angle like I'm hawking for your gig, I love to share. Like that's ultimately why I'm doing this, is I like to talk about what I'm doing and share my techniques and the things I've learned. That's fun for me. So I don't find any like, it's not scary to me.
Okay, you are now harmonica tech.
Correct.
You're on the road.
Yeah.
You're playing around, dabbling in monitors.
Correct.
Did you run monitors for that band?
Correct. Yeah. So
Okay.
I became their monitor engineer. I moved out of the harmonica tech position into being their monitor engineer eventually.
Okay, so
Yeah,
you started on that side.
Exactly.
Okay.
That was my first like touring gig. I would
How
say.
long were you with them?
About a year at that time. Yeah, about a year I was with them on tours, one-offs kind of thing.
What was the console?
So we were console du jour, unfortunately.
For monitors?
So for everybody at that time. It was most often, it was like the D show, the full-size D shows, or the profiles were relatively new. So those are the two most encountered, but there was a bit of a, figuring it out on the day. PM5Ds, the old D5s, the Digicos before the SD series, antiques. Yeah.
What is your biggest takeaway from that part of your life? Is there any that you still use today?
Yeah, absolutely, I would say. So from that gig into moving into being a front of house engineer on tour and not carrying a desk initially, I think that was super, super helpful to me in growing as like doing this job professionally, when the desk itself isn't a hurdle, when you don't feel daunted by like walking up to something, you can kind of get your mix going. I think that's a super, super important skill to have. Whether or not that's a thing that happens often, you know, a lot of people own their own desks these days, so it's not such a thing anymore. But like, I think it's a good skill to have, being easy to like kind of just navigate and getting how different manufacturers do things. It makes your brain kind of like adaptable, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
What was the next band?
So after that, I left Blues Traveler and I started working with a band called Modern Baseball, who was and still is relatively popular in like the kind of emo punk world. The entry there is that I grew up with one of the band guys, and so that was kind of more my speed. This is sort of my world. And so once they started taking off and had a need for a person to take care of that, I sort of jumped in with them.
I just realized Blues Traveler. They're the one with the
hook and run around. Oh,
yes!
Yeah.
They're awesome.
Yeah, that's that band, the 90s.
The lead singer's harmonica.
Correct. Yes, that's the guy. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
I'm sorry it just took that long to click, but that's
okay.
freaking awesome.
Yeah, that was the one. Yeah.
You were on tour with them.
Correct.
In that prime?
Correct. As a 21-year-old kid. Yeah.
Dude, that's really cool. I love that band.
Yeah, it was crazy. That was really crazy.
I'm sorry.
That's
That was
okay.
like, it just
That's
clicked
okay.
like, oh yeah, Blues Traveler.
Yeah, it's very far from this world.
Okay, remind me the next band again.
Modern Baseball is what they're called.
Modern Baseball. Have
Yeah.
not heard of them.
It's okay, yeah. So they've not been a band for almost 10 years at this point. I think they stopped being a band in like 2017,
Okay.
in terms of being an active band, that is at least. But they still have a really large following, kind of culty following, yeah.
Okay, what genre?
Like punk, emo, kind of like modern in that way, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was next after that?
So that band opened a lot of doors for me, I would say. I met a lot of people through that band. And I would say as an extension, it's like this gig through a number of steps. It's been a bunch of people that I've met along the way. A band called Pup from Toronto, Jeff Rosenstock. Jeff Rosenstock is a singer-songwriter, punk kind of band leader from New York. He lives in LA now. I work with a band called Streetlight Manifesto these days. That's kind of like the other band that I work with mainly besides these guys. Yeah, there's a number of bands over the years.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how'd you get connected with?
So Silverstein was actually another Bobnet connection that is kind of funny. They had a fill-in guy at the time whose name is Chris Pollock, who I know you've met. He's a buddy of mine. And so I sent an email to an ad that I saw that they had posted, and Chris was sitting next to Paul, who manages Silverstein at the time. And Paul was like, have you heard of this guy? He goes, oh yeah, that's my buddy Jake. And so long story short, here we are. Yeah.
Awesome. And how long have you been with these guys for?
About 3 years now. I started with them in like the summer of 22.
Okay.
Yeah. It's been a good thing so far.
Wow.
All around the world.
So which one's your favorite band member, your least favorite band member? Tell me the worst story.
In order of sequence, yeah. Right, yeah.
In order of
Cool.
sequence and all the things you hate about them
Cool.
personally.
Yeah, you want to hear about their partners too?
Yes, exactly.
So, yeah.
Talking about this tour,
Uh-huh.
where are you at in this tour?
So this is the second U.S. leg
Okay.
of their 25th anniversary tour. We started the top of the year, so it's currently like in the middle of April right now. We started January 4th, was the beginning of the U.S. first leg. We did a run in Europe and the UK in between. Back in the U.S. now, we've got a lot more to go for the rest of the year. Yeah, busy, busy.
How's it been so far?
Great.
Minus the cold weather.
That's the thing. We've hit some weather snags along the way, but otherwise the shows have been great. We have a small but like super solid crew that keeps this boat floated and smooth. Yeah, we've been on tour with some really great support bands all year who have been super cool too. Can't complain.
Are you only doing front of house for this one?
That's correct. So sort of. They don't have a dedicated monitor engineer. It's a relatively static mix, so I'm not touching it all the time,
Sure.
but I am the one with the handles on it.
So no like front of house TM, PM.
Correct.
type
I'm
thing.
audio, I would say, is my gig.
Wow.
And that's
At
another thing
this
I've
level,
leaned
it's
into.
pretty awesome.
It's absolutely the case. I have done a lot of front of house TM gigs, and it's a thing I try and stay away from these days because I find myself spread too thin to do the part that I enjoy the most.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's too many things going on during the day to like fully put my time and effort into the part I enjoy the most.
Okay, for touring at clubs this size,
Sure.
you have to do the SE portion as well. You don't get to travel with the SE. So
Absolutely.
walk me through your process with that, because it's kind of tough as well. Because I mean, at least for me at this size, I don't.
Toms sound good.
I don't consider myself an SE, so I felt a little
Sure.
intimidating with that.
Sure, that's fair. That's fair. I would say kind of two pieces. I would say I'm certainly not to the level where I would be confident going and like deploying a rig in a
Sure.
arena or whatever. But at the same time, that is a thing that I'm enjoying getting better at and learning more about, and definitely take on at this level. So there's a few parts of the rig that I sort of use to facilitate that. As I'm carrying a desk, that means that the mix is generally pretty together on the day-to-day. Like that's sort of my constant. If it sounds right in my ears and my headphones, then I can sort of feel confident that what I need to work on in the day is making sure the rig sounds right, that it's translating properly. And so to that effect, I kind of take care of the rig all outside of the console. I just send a stereo mix out of the desk, and I have a lake down here where I break it out into like left, right, sub, fill. And that's sort of where I spend my time, like for the most part during my check during the day is in the lake, in the system, in virtual soundcheck, listening to my mix and making it right for the day. So I'll spend time listening to the mains and the subs sort of in isolation, going back and then just listening to the front fills, because oftentimes in these venues, that's like an afterthought in terms of these installations. And so giving them some time for the most passionate fans that are on the rail is important to me. So taking some time to listen to those, making sure they're like balanced with the mains and the subs, just sort of taking my time and going through the system, making sure it's all proper.
Do you mix to a curve, or do you just kind of do it by ear?
It's mostly by ear, I would say. I don't have like a target curve. I do use Smart for like an RTA and for transfer function for like making sure I'm in a ballpark of something. Like it's more of a visual reference for me.
Sure.
I hear something's wonky. I hear it's in this range, and I take a look over there and I see what specifically maybe I'm hearing. So I'm not using it to the degree that like, I'm not time aligning stuff so much. There's so much going on behind the scenes in an installation in a club, whether it's like amp settings that I just don't have access to, that for me to go in and start trying to do that from the ground up seems counterintuitive. I'd rather like listen to what's going on and just sort of use my ears at this level.
So other than advancing, what is the first thing you do when you walk into a club? What are you first assessing?
Sure, yeah. So it's space is I think the first big one, like where is everything gonna land? Because when you're limited in the club setting like this, it's definitely more of a challenge in that way. It's the deployment of the PA, what manufacturer, how far up stage is it gonna cause an issue with my vocals kind of thing? That's a relevant concern. And then it's just like, does it all work? Is it broken? Are parts of it broken? You know, it's verifying all that stuff. Is this plugged in the right spot, left and right swapped? It's little things like that. Just making sure all the like sort of detail-y stuff is proper.
We're back.
Hello.
We're gonna take a break.
Welcome.
Gotta love touring.
Loud
And
noises.
I picked the worst place ever to do these interviews. This band.
Yeah.
How many members?
So we got 5 guys in the band. 2
Okay.
guitar players, bass, drums, and a vocalist.
Okay. Amps? No amps? You doing
There's no
Kempers
amps. It's
or
also
quad
they're all quad
Cortexes?
cortexes. Yeah. So both guitar players, I get stereo signals from out of their quad cortexes, and then the bass player Billy, he gives me a pre and a post distortion. So I get like a clean line and a distorted line that I sort of blend together to make his sound.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tracks? No tracks?
There are tracks, but it's essentially they get a click track to play along to, and then a stereo pair that comes out to me. It's like keyboard patches or like choiry things, just
Okay.
like stuff that's not happening on stage, essentially.
Sure.
Stuff that's not represented by the dudes holding the instruments.
Ears? Wedges? Side fills?
So not a speaker on stage for this band. Everybody's on ears, and there's no like thumpers, no subs, no side fills. It's all direct. Yeah.
Favorite song to mix on this tour?
Ooh, good question. I think that it's probably a song called Aquamarine, which is a song they don't often play. It's sort of, they're doing stuff from each record on this tour, sort of like as an anniversary tour. And so that's an unusual one. It's very dynamic, and I enjoy that part of it. Yeah, big loud and big quiet.
Where's the last song you mixed that made you feel emotional in a good way?
Oh, it's a good question. I think so. This set has a lot of that for me. The nature of the songs is emo, so emotional in nature to begin with. But it's also, it's cool. This set has a cool element of it that is sort of like going back through time. They start with a video that's sort of like a retrospective of the history of the band. It's a good way to get in your feels at the beginning of the show. Think about 20 years ago where you were, that kind of thing. Yeah. In terms of songs, I think that, I don't know if there's a specific one. They kind of all have moments. Yeah.
If you guys want to support this channel, it got some merch and there's some stuff you could do. Go to Patreon, you can subscribe for that, or YouTube membership. please, if you want to help support that, go down below. But okay, if you could pay to mix for any band,
Oh.
what band would you?
Honestly, it's probably Metallica. Like, it
Yeah.
doesn't get cooler or bigger than Metallica. That's like, of all the legacy type, massive, ridiculous bands, that's the one. That's the one for me. Yeah.
Um, what is the biggest mistake you've made, and what did you
Hmm.
learn from that? At least in not in terms of like touring and stuff.
Sure. Yeah. That's a really good question. I think it's probably not a technical, like nothing to do with like audio.
Yeah.
It's more like personality based, I would say. I think
That's
like
good.
it's easy. Like this is a crazy situation to live and work in. Like you're with your coworkers 24/7. You're doing a tough job to begin with, so it's like easy for people's emotions or tempers or whatever to get involved. And so I think a big thing is learning how to like treat yourself in a way that gives you self space to recover. So like because this is stressful and emotional, you need to some specifically, I'm like an introverted person, so I need my own space. So I need to on a day off or something take some time to myself and not like constantly be socializing. It's a way for me to keep myself like even and in a good way. I think that's a big one is learning what you need as a person to kind of like operate and feel good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
So in terms of mistakes, it's like not respecting that. You know what I mean?
with touring all the time, how do you keep yourself grounded?
Uh, it's tough. There's no doubt, but it's everything's
Do you
about
have some
balance.
memorabilia from home that you keep with, or some routine that you kind of do?
You
in the
know, I don't have
craziness, or-
anything physical, but it's for me, it's more like keeping in touch with those people.
Yeah.
It's like staying involved with what's going on at home. Otherwise, it's easy to sort of like let those two worlds become super separate, and you can neglect one or the other, and it's easy for responsibilities or people or whatever to kind of get forgotten about when you're not physically there.
Yeah.
So it's keeping that like being a part of it as much as possible, even if you're not physically there.
Biggest misconception being on tour?
The glamour. I think like there's two sides of
There's
being on
Buc-ee's
tour.
now. There's glamour
Dude,
now.
there's no doubt that doing this job has given me like the craziest experiences, the coolest stuff I've ever done in my life, places I never would have been to before, like otherwise people I never would have met. But there's a lot of hard work that goes into it, and you need to kind of be down for both. You need to be adaptable and like yeah, that's the biggest misconception is how fun and cool and easy it always is.
Yeah.
It definitely is sometimes, but it's not always that way. It can be tough. So just being ready to kind of like pick it up where you need. Yeah.
Coolest new trick you've learned recently?
Okay. The coolest new trick I've learned recently. So I think it's maybe not a new trick, but maybe new to me is a thing I've been doing in terms of audio. Side chaining on my like cymbal group. So my drums are broken out into four main groups. I have a kick, a snare, a toms, and a cymbal group. And in that cymbal group, I have a compressor on it that's side chained to the snare. So it essentially ducks the cymbal group when the snare gets hit. And that kind of crazy high-end phasey stuff that's going on in the cymbals gets minimized
You have
that
to
way.
walk us through that later.
Sure, absolutely.
That's cool.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Top 3 things you need on tour.
Top
Personally.
3 things. That's a great question. AirPods. Definitely number one. Like in my bunk, going to sleep or just like as a way to kind of tune out the literal noise of being on tour. That's a really good one. Honestly, this desk has become pretty indispensable for this show. I'm not crazy programmed through everything, but the way that I've got it I've built this show over the number of years now. It's become pretty indispensable to have the kind of tools that it gives me. The third one, a comfortable pair of shoes, I think is really big. Keeping your body in good shape when you're on tour is tough. And so anything you can do to minimize like the wear and tear. Yeah.
What do you say is the biggest travel hack or tour hack? I'm sorry.
Well, that's a good one. Tour hack, travel hack. Let's see. Okay, recently I started doing this. I have a set of clothes that is what I take with me on tour that it gets washed and just goes back in the suitcase, so I don't have to like think about putting that whole set of stuff together when I'm leaving. It's just like the black shirts stay in the bag, and I have home clothes for when I'm home. It's less like confusion and thinking about what I need to grab. That's a good hack. Yeah.
Best piece of advice you've gotten from one of your mentors?
Ooh, that's good. I think it's to like ask questions, but at the right time in the right place, like to be aware of what's going on around you. It's like you should be curious, you should want to know from people that know more than you, but it's to recognize when is the right time to ask those questions.
Last concert you went to that you weren't working at?
I just saw a comedy show in the little break before tour, a comedian named Jordan Jensen. She was super funny. And then I relatively recently, let's see, I went to go see my friend's band. He's got a band called Cheer Up, a local Philly band, and it was yeah, just a little local show, but yeah, for fun.
What's the last mix you heard, that live mix that kind of rocked your world and made you rethink?
Wow,
Yeah.
great question. Um, wow. The one that comes to mind is Justin Timberlake. Actually, it's been a while since this experience happened, but I was on a gig and had like a friend of a friend in their camp, and so we got to go like check it out, the production essentially, and hang out for sound check, and just like the cleanliness and like the impact of the mix and everything, it was
Do
perfect.
you remember who was mixing?
His name is Andy Meyer.
Oh, I
Yeah.
know Andy.
Yeah, yeah,
What's up, Andy?
super cool, super cool. Yeah,
Great engineer.
yeah, absolutely.
Who are some of your mentors? The people you
Okay.
look up to?
The number one, I would say, in terms of like personal relationship, his name is Jason Dermer. He runs a company called Asbury Audio, which is sort of where I came up. He gave me my first shot, and he also taught me a whole lot along the way. I still love coming back to Asbury and hanging out with him and their crew. In terms of like larger like people I look up to in the industry, I would also say Pooch. I've never met him, but him and Raybold, that podcast they did together
Yeah.
over the pandemic was it helped me think about things in a way I hadn't before. Those guys are two big ones for me. Yeah.
Walk me through your microphones you're doing, and then your gear, and then I'm gonna grab a camera. We're gonna walk through your setup here.
Sure, absolutely. So this is a mic light production. It's since all the guitars are direct that way, it's just vocals and drums that have physical microphones on them on this stage.
Okay.
So for vocals, everybody's on SE V7s.
Okay.
Drums are a bit of a mishmash of stuff. I've got a Shure 91 on the in, the V kick from SE on the out. Snare is the Loughton snare mic on the top, and Bayer Dynamic 201 on the bottom. Toms are SE V beats, and hi-hat ride are SE8s, and then overheads are the 4400s.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then a Allen and Heath
D Live at front of house.
1500, not the CTI 1500, but
Not
the,
this time. So we rent an audio package through a production company called Soundbox, based out of Toronto, where the band is from. And so this time I've got the regular C, but sometimes I get the TI from them. Otherwise, I have a Lake for splitting out to my PA drive and an XTA console switcher that I'm using to bring in the other support desk and the house desk as well, to run like house music without downtime and hot swaps and that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna grab that camera, kind of walk through this. So
Great.
for anybody who's like a Patreon or YouTube member, this is for you guys. If not, click the link and go join that. Before that, if anybody wants to follow you and follow your career,
Sure.
where can they follow you at?
So all of my social handles are at the Jake Katz, and then my website is jakekatzsound.com.
Or come to a Silverstein show near you.
It
All right.
probably will be.
Let me grab that camera real fast,
Sick.
and then let's
Sounds
run
good.
through it real quick. Is that cool?
Let's do it.
Let's go.